This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone. Yesterday on the show, I had Wayne Tucson, school teacher from Johannesburg, South Africa, who is doing something tangible to try to change the hearts of the young men who are so caught up in that very, very violent culture. Well, as you know, the United States is not far behind South Africa in that. You just look at the news out of Minneapolis lately, where gangs of youth have been going around and just robbing people left and right, or things that are happening in Baltimore, similar things like that. Lots of other places around the country. And it's obvious that we need someone to really stand up and start to disciple young men and teach them what true manhood looks like. I just wanted to bring on somebody today who is doing something about that in the United States, and that's Mark Hancock, who is tell me about your organization, Trail Life USA.
Sure. I'm with Trail Life USA. It's about 6 years old. We are a Christ-centered, boy-focused character leadership and adventure organization for boys. We're in about 800 troops across the United States, about 30,000 members.
So this is basically like the Boy Scouts used to be before they turned it into just the Scouts. And I'm guessing you probably don't let transvestites lead the groups of boys.
No, we don't. We have a statement of values and a statement of faith that our adult members follow. But we were started pretty much in the wake of when it was clear about 5 or 6 years ago. Actually, the last decade or so, the Boy Scouts have been showing some signs of departing from some of their more traditional values, and we actually knew that if they started down that road, they would get to the point where they didn't recognize the difference between boys and girls. And of course, that's where we are now. We love girls. We think girls are awesome, and girls can use an adventure, character, and leadership program. But we think they need one separate from the boys. So we think that boys need a place where they can be boys, where it's a male-focused, male-centric environment. We think that's what boys are missing in our culture today. As a sort of role model, and those certain opportunities or rituals, if you will, that take a boy from boy to manhood. So we are unapologetically Christian, also unapologetically boy focused. We will always be about boys. We think that boys and men are getting a bad deal today, and so we're doing everything we can to help them to mature into good godly men.
Oh, man, I'm all over that. So tell me more about what it's like for boys who are part of your organization. What kind of things do they get to do, camps and things like that you've got going?
Sure. We start at kindergarten and we go through 12th grade. That's our youth membership. And our Woodlands Trail program is younger boys, kindergarten through 5th grade. And they'll do things like we focus on knowledge. We use a classical model for education. At that age, boys can learn a lot. If you remember when you were little, if you had sons, it's amazing what it is that they can memorize when they're young. And so that whole 6-year span, they're foxes, hawks, and mountain lions in 2-year sprints, and they are working on knowledge, developing knowledge about the outdoors, about who it is that they are, their character, about what a leader looks like. So they're learning all that knowledge, and then they become a navigator, and that's through 6th and 8th grade. And that's when we move from knowledge to understanding. Their brain has developed a little bit more, so they're able to understand now why they have that knowledge, and they're starting to put some things together. And that's also when the outdoor elements really start to kick in. The younger boys may be camping, car camping, or short-term day hikes and things like that, but the older boys go into some of the more challenging, high adventure kind of things. And that's when the navigator starts to transition into some of the more high adventure. Well, he's taken all that knowledge that he learned as a Woodlands Trailman. Now he's beginning to understand and put things together. And he'll begin some backpacking experiences, outdoor experience, whitewater rafting, zip lining, all the stuff, bouldering, climbing, all those things that go along with the outdoors. Then the high school age is called the adventurers. And the focus there is on wisdom. They've got the knowledge as a Woodlands Trailman. As a navigator, they start to understand it. As an adventurer, they're actually applying that knowledge. And something that you'll see there is we have adults who are overseeing the adventure program, but the boys are running the program. So that's when they're beginning to develop their leadership skills. There'll be an adult in the room, but the boys, the high school age boys sitting around that table, they're deciding where it is they're going to camp, how many miles they're going to hike that day, who's going to bring what food do they need, because they've got the knowledge, they've got an understanding of the application, and they've had some exposure to it. Now they're really doing it themselves. So we're progressing them from boys who have a good, strong leader and role models in front of them to a role model who's going to step back a little bit and let them gain some understanding, to where that leader is almost completely out of the picture, except to be there and keep them safe. And those boys are doing all their own planning. That's where the leadership part of Trail Life comes in. And those older boys also get to go back and they lead the younger boys. Mm-hmm. Our program, because it's kindergarten through 18 and it's a single charter, it's a single troop, those older boys are there with the younger boys. Even though in meeting, typically they'll break out and they'll do their own things. But a lot of times those older boys will be sent, go down there and teach those Woodlands trailmen how to tie a particular knot, or how to set up a campsite, or what you use your standard for, these types of things. So the boys are leading as they get into those older ages, and we think that's a strong preparation for manhood.
Oh, absolutely. So what is the final culmination of that when they're 18 years old? Is there some sort of achievement like you would liken to an Eagle Scout or something like that?
Sure. Although we're not awards centric, we have a very robust awards program. Because our focus is on character and leadership and adventure. From those summer trips, our boys aren't working on badges. They're working on enjoying the outdoors and engaging the outdoors and taking the stuff they use during the year, taking the outdoors. So, but we do a very robust, awards program, everything that you expect. Mm-hmm. Where the Boy Scouts have the sash that they wear and they sew the patches on there, we have a standard, which is a walking stick that's actually harvested for us in Bavarian forest, and it's a staff, and the boys nail their medallions to that as they earn those. There's about 25 of those that they earn for our highest award, which is called the Freedom Award. And so they have to choose from a number of these different disciplines, and they have to have a major and 2 minors. So they're spreading over 3 of those disciplines. So we're producing a well-rounded boy who isn't just really good at one particular thing. He's able to speak to different things as the classically educated man. And so that's our highest award, the Freedom Award. And we do allow Boy Scouts to move over, and they're able to take what it is that they've earned in Boy Scouts and somewhat translate it into some similar things. Camping is camping and hiking is hiking. So a lot of that stuff is the same. Mm-hmm. But we have stuff in our program that's unique to Trail Life, like talking about what a family man does. One of our badges is called Family Man. Well, that's going to be very different in a Christian organization. The definition of family, the definition of man, who thought that was going to be controversial? Yeah. But our definition of family and man, there's nothing like that in the Boy Scout program. So there are badges that they have to earn with us. And if a boy comes over with an Eagle Award, and I can speak to this because my son did this. My son was an Eagle Scout, transferred in Trail Life USA, and took him about a year and a half to build on top of the Eagle in order to receive his Freedom Award, because it's a more challenging award, and because there's also faith elements to it and value elements that you won't find in the other program. That
is fantastic. So what was it that gave you the idea to start this?
Oh gosh, it wasn't me. It was about, I'm not that smart. When the Boy Scouts started to go off the rails, there were about 300 volunteers across the country who met up through different social media places. LinkedIn, I think, was primarily. And they were all talking about the idea that something needs to be done here, because there's so much passion. You had a 103-year-old organization at the time that had given us presidents and astronauts and senators and generals and civic leaders. And all of a sudden they had just kind of throwing all that away or giving all that up. And so there's a huge gap to fill. And we also understood that particularly churches, that a lot of chartering partners from Boy Scout troops are churches. We knew that they could no longer continue to charter troops because of the direction that the national office was taking with Boy Scouts. So there were a number of factions that came together in Louisville, Kentucky in 2013. About 50 of us gathered in a room. Somehow I ended up in that room, most unlikely person to be there. And then out of that room, we had 7 men who were assigned to a steering committee. And 68 days later, Chuck, in Nashville, Tennessee, we had 1,100 men gather from 44 states and an inaugural convention 68 days later after us gathering for the first time. And then in January, 3 months later, we launched with 10,000 members on our first day. So there was a lot of energy behind this idea. And because people knew that there was going to be this huge gap that needed to be filled by people who are interested in these sorts of values. People understand that boys and girls are different, and we need to recognize that. We need to reward boys' risk in competition rather than punish them for it. And so through all that, obviously, it's brought us the kind of growth we've seen. Like I said, 30,000 members. We don't do any really significant advertising. It's pretty much word of mouth, and fewer than 50% of our troops were formerly Boy Scout troops, but we do have a lot of former Boy Scouts who have moved over into Trail Life USA.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so you got 30,000 members. How many leaders typically what's the tooth to tail ratio, so to speak, the ratio of leaders to scouts?
Yeah, it varies. Right now, we're in a growth spurt with a lot of new troops starting, and it takes leaders. This is a little bit different than Boy Scouts too. Boy Scouts, if you gather a bunch of boys, you can start a troop. Our organization, because it's so focused on mentorship, you have to have your leaders in place first. So we probably have a higher than average leader to boy ratio. We have about 8,000 leaders across the country, volunteer leaders. But we expect that to level off as those troops, get more and more full. Our average troop size is growing every year because, a troop that's been around now 3, 4, 5 years is beginning to really find its stride and beginning to really grow. So we're seeing a number of things happen. We're seeing the number of troops grow. We're seeing the size of the troops grow. And of course, we're also seeing the membership just soar with that.
Boy, that is so sorely needed. If somebody wants to get in touch with you and become a part of this organization, get involved somehow, what do they do?
Our website is traillifeusa.com. Traillifeusa.com has 2 L's in the middle. And if you go there, there's a tab, I believe it's Get Connected, and you can find a troop there, which means you can click on there, put in your zip code or your address or all kinds of information you put in there, and it'll bring up an interactive map that'll show you the troops that are meeting in your area. And if there isn't a troop, there's also a tab for Start a Troop, and it'll show you exactly what it is. And you start a troop. It takes about 5 leaders at a minimum, and a chartering organization, which is a troop, a church typically, that has a statement of faith that aligns with ours, and also agrees to their statement of values. The adult leaders sign that statement of faith and sign the statement of values, and they also are criminal background checked, and they also complete child and safety, youth and protection training every 2 years. And the boys do not need to sign that. In fact, boys of no faith or boys of any faith at all are permitted in the organization, but the adults all agree to our statement of faith and our statement of values.
That's really helpful. Good. Well, I hope it continues to grow because this is, like I said, it's so badly needed in the United States today and even around the world. Do you have any international troops yet?
Well, we have a lot of desire for that, but our focus is on building the foundation here, fighting for our religious freedoms and securing those. There are some weaknesses that come if you expose yourself around the world in those things, because of course no one else has the religious freedoms that we have, although some of those feel like they're in question. So we're all about securing ourselves here. Although ironically, you asked that question, it's actually on the agenda tomorrow night with our board of directors to talk about, should we start looking at how it is we can respond to some of these requests around the world, typically from military families around the world who are saying, we were in a trail life troop in Virginia or New Mexico or something, and now we're stationed in Germany. How can we start a trail life troop here? So that's a little easier to do, to take Americans who are overseas and have them form a troop. But we definitely need to be in prayer and determine if that's a direction that we should be taking.
Well, Mark Hancock, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for the work you're doing for young men. That's so important. And remind me to get you a copy of my book, Making Men. I think you'll find that useful too. Anything I can do to help, feel free to let me know, and I hope we'll have you back on again on the Hot Zone very shortly. So thanks for being with us. All right.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay, folks, that's it for today's Hot Zone. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and share on social media, and get this out to your friends that have young men, because they need to be a part of something like this. So that's all we've got for today. Take care.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.